Thank you for watching this video on the Programs for Foster Youth portion of the Regional Training. Throughout this presentation, you will notice these icons. They are there to let you know of additional resources that are available to you. These resources can be found on the Commission's website or in your WebGrants portal. First, we will talk about the new Foster Youth Access Award. Thanks to an additional $20 million in ongoing general funds, a new Access Award for former or current foster youth was created with the goal of enabling more foster students to receive financial aid to attend college. This award is in addition to the Chaffee Grant program. However, with any Cal Grant, awards cannot exceed students' unmet need. The Foster Youth Access Award mirrors the Students with Dependents Award in that Access Award amounts are the same. Students must be attending a public California college to receive the increased award, and awards are prorated based on enrollment level. New and renewal Cal Grant A students who are current or former foster youth will receive the Access Award of up to $6,000. In addition, the Cal Grant A Foster Youth Access Award is payable at a community college and therefore will not be placed on Community College Reserve, which is typical for Cal Grant A awarded at a community college. New and renewal Cal Grant B students who are current or former foster youth will see their Access Award increase from $1,648 to $6,000. Cal Grant C students are eligible for a total award not to exceed $4,000. Students who qualify for both the Foster Youth Access Award and the Cal Grant for Students with Dependents are only eligible for the Foster Youth Access Award. First in this presentation, we will introduce the newly expanded Cal Grant B with special exceptions for foster youth. While the Cal Grant B has been around for a long time, the existing requirements were expanded in the 2018-2019 school year to provide additional opportunities for college students who were in foster care at any point since age 13. Foster status is automatically verified by the California Department of Social Services. 3 of the Cal Grant B requirements were expanded, specifically for foster youth. The first one is that the priority high school entitlement application window was increased beyond just high school seniors and prior year graduates. Verified foster youth can now receive the Cal Grant B through age 26. The second is that the application deadline was expanded from March 2nd to September 2nd for foster youth attending a California community college. The third is that the lifetime eligibility of 4 years was increased to 8 years or 800%. Now we will look at the Foster Youth Verification Tool. The Foster Youth Verification Tool identifies foster students who were in foster care from age 13 and up and could be eligible for campus or federal foster programs. Please note that this tool is not needed for Cal Grant B for foster youth or Chaffee Grant recipients. That's because students who are already flagged as foster youth and are awarded the Cal Grant B or Chaffee Grant were already verified as a qualifying foster youth, so no further verification is needed. This tool is for federal and campus aid only. We would also like to point out another distinction. While foster youth programs such as the Chaffee Grant, Cal Grant B, as well as federal and campus foster programs all serve the same cohort of students, please note that the Foster Youth Verification Tool identifies foster youth from age 13, whereas the Chaffee Grant is specific to students who are in foster care between 16 and 18 years of age. Therefore, you may find students who are in foster care from ages 13 to 15 who are eligible for federal and campus-based programs, but are not eligible for the Chaffee Grant because they left foster care before turning 16. Finally, this tool is read-only. If you get the message, Foster Youth Verification has not been verified yet, it likely means one of 2 things. The first option could be there is a discrepancy in the demographic data, for example, the last name, first name, or date of birth that you entered and what CDSS records indicate. The second would be your student is not on your roster, which means they did not list your school on their FAFSA or DREAM Act application. The Commission is working to create a verification process for students who are not automatically verified using this tool. Another new program is the Cal Grant for Students with Dependent Children. While this award is not specific to foster youth, Foster youth with dependent children can also qualify, so let's take a look at the requirements on the next slide. The Students with Dependents Award is not specific to foster students. However, foster students with a qualifying child may be eligible. Students who receive the Cal Grant B for foster youth and have a qualifying child could even receive this award for up to 8 years based on the new Cal Grant B for foster youth expansion. This new program aimed at working parents allows Cal Grant awarded students with qualifying dependent children to receive a new and significantly larger Access Award. Students attending California community colleges, CSUs, and UC campuses with dependent children under 18 years of age for whom they provide more than 50% support can qualify. Preliminary eligibility is initially determined by the dependent children question on the FAFSA and the DREAM Act application. Do you now have or will you have children who will receive more than half of their support from you? Students who answer yes to this question are then required to certify their eligibility through their Web Grants for Students portal, which we will go over towards the end of the presentation. The new Access Award pays up to $6,000 for qualifying Cal Grant A recipients and $6,000 for Cal Grant B recipients, or up to $4,000 for eligible Cal Grant C recipients. One significant change is that there is no automatic community college reserve for students with dependent children receiving a Cal Grant A at a community college. That means for the first time, a student with a Cal Grant A could actually be paid at a community college if they qualify for this award. For those of you who are familiar with how a Cal Grant typically works, you may recall that Cal Grant A only covers statewide tuition and fees at four-year universities, not community colleges, and it normally does not include the Access Award. However, now the Cal Grant A award for students with dependent children comes with that Access Award component and is payable at all California public colleges, including the community colleges. As we move into our next topic, the Chaffee Grant, please note that the Chaffee Grant has very different requirements than the Cal Grant B for foster youth. We will review these requirements now. The Chaffee Grant is both federally and state funded, and it pays up to $5,000 annually. The Chaffee Grant paid participation is limited to 5 years. Each academic year that a payment greater than $1 is issued counts as 1 year of paid participation. However, participation does not have to occur in consecutive academic years. Students should work with their financial aid office to suspend payment if they want to save their Chaffee funds for future non-consecutive use. Another requirement is that the student must be a current or former foster youth living in foster care for at least 1 day between the ages of 16 and 18. They also must be younger than 26 years of age by July 1st of the award year. The previous age limit was 23 years old, however, Assembly Bill 1811 expanded this eligibility. There are several aspects about the Chaffee Grant that make it very different from other traditional financial aid. Since the Chaffee Grant is both federally and state funded, and because it falls under the umbrella of Health and Human Services, Chaffee funds are not earmarked specifically for just tuition and fees or even books and supplies. In fact, Chaffee funds can be used towards rent, transportation, childcare, or towards grad school or a teacher certification. Additionally, it is portable and can be used at a qualifying out-of-state school. To be eligible to administer the Chaffee Grant, out-of-state schools and campuses must meet the following criteria. They must be accredited, Title IV participating institution, a greater than 30% overall graduation rate, less than 15.5% direct federal loan cohort default rate. Lastly, these additional items, which are required for most types of financial aid, are not required for the Chaffee Grant. Students are not required to apply by March 2nd, have a Social Security number. That means our DREAM Act applicants are also eligible. They do not have to graduate or get a high school GED, submit a GPA, be free of student loan default, register for selective service, or meet the ability to benefit requirements. The ability to benefit, according to the FSA definition, means that students lacking a high school diploma or GED are still eligible to receive federal financial aid if they are enrolled to take specific coursework or programs that lead to a career pathway or degree. But Chaffee awardees are not required to have a high school diploma or GED and do not need to demonstrate an ability to benefit from taking college classes. In other words, they can take any courses or classes of their choosing. At some point, however, if a student does not make progress towards a career pathway, certificate, or degree, eventually the school's SAP policy around PACE may catch up. Now we will take a look at how Web Grants identifies and prioritizes Chaffee eligible awardees. In order to initially receive and then to renew the Chaffee Grant, students must submit a FAFSA or DREAM Act application each year, and a Chaffee Grant application only one time. Foster youth status is automatically verified by the California Department of Social Services through a monthly report. If you encounter a student whose foster status has not been confirmed, please help your student submit the Foster Youth Verification Form so that CDSS can manually review and update the data. Let's see what the foster youth verification process looks like on the next slide. From the same Chaffee website where the application is found, navigate to the Chaffee Eligibility tab to open up the foster youth verification form. It is online and fillable and can be saved and emailed as an attachment. If a student does not have the contact information for their caseworker, ILP coordinator, or probation officer, the blue boxes at the bottom of the screen contains a list of these county contact people. The foster care verification form will be routed to the various channels and will ultimately be verified by CDSS. CSAC then updates the student records in the Chaffee database. Students who have fulfilled all application components, the Chaffee Grant application, plus a FAFSA or DREAM Act application, plus the CDSS foster youth verification, will be prioritized in Web Grants based on the following awarding criteria. Paid renewal students, that is, students who have previously received a Chaffee payment, new and non-paid renewal students who will be 25 years old as of July 1st of the award year, new and non-paid renewal students who have dependents, new and non-paid renewal students who have an unmet need of $5,000 or more, new and non-paid renewal students who have an unmet need of less than $5,000. As college financial aid personnel report students who are ineligible because they are not in attendance, not attending at least half time, or not making satisfactory academic progress, those awards will be withdrawn from ineligible students and recycled and reawarded to waitlisted students. It is common for students to be waitlisted for an entire school year before they are awarded. It may be helpful to see the awarding hierarchy in a flowchart format. The Commission and the California Department of Social Services have a data sharing agreement, so CSAC receives monthly data files with eligible students who are in foster care between 16 and 18 years of age. Students who submit a FAFSA or DREAM Act application and Chaffee application are matched to the corresponding foster care record. Once all three application components are met, CSAC's database, Web Grants, prioritizes all applicants based on whether they are brand new or renewal applicants, their age, because eldest students are paid first since they will age out of the program first, whether applicants support their own dependents, and unmet need. New eligible applicants are initially waitlisted until all others ahead of them in priority are paid, and the new applicants eventually rise to the top of the awarding hierarchy. Once again, brand new, younger applicants are often waitlisted for the first school year they apply. Once awarded, the College Financial Aid Office will certify students' eligibility based on the fact that they are at least half-time enrolled, meeting SAP, but remember, per Senate Bill 150, there are relaxed SAP standards for Chaffee awardees, and also the unmet need, and then at that point, campuses can disperse checks to eligible students. This section will introduce you to the eligibility and payment reporting process. You will notice that we emphasize the need to report ineligible students as well as eligible students. This is extremely important because reporting ineligible students is the trigger to recycle those funds, which are then used to re-award another eligible student. So you may not realize it, but you play a major role in keeping funds moving and assisting the recycling process by working your roster on a weekly basis. While schools are great about certifying eligible students, many do not regularly certify ineligible students. And because the viability of the Chaffee Grant relies on recycled funds, it is essential to keep funds continually moving by withdrawing and recycling those funds to waitlisted students every week. By certifying ineligible students consistently every week of every term, you initiate the recycling process and help other students get paid. Another important aspect of the recycling and re-awarding process is that it increases award utilization. This is a good thing and can impact future Chaffee Funds allocations. Higher award utilization means that more students benefited from the funding and that more students were served. A final note to reiterate before we leave this slide is to remember to certify and request a payment in the same transaction, since only one transaction is permitted each week. Remember to report ineligibility for students who are not enrolled, attending less than half time, completed their program or degree, or are not making SAP. Once again, reporting ineligibility is what triggers our system to recycle those funds to another waitlisted student. So if you do not certify your roster to report both eligible and ineligible students, the entire recycling and re-awarding process is disrupted. As you can see in these examples, not certifying the roster causes delays to eligible students awaiting their payments. And since Chaffee funds can also be used towards rent, transportation, or childcare, any delay in receiving funds will negatively impact your student's ability to pay their tuition, fees, or even rent. In other words, not certifying your roster, even if your student is ineligible, also negatively impacts other eligible waitlisted students. Please keep these things in mind so that you are always following best practices and are acting in the best interest of our students. Here is an example of how the recycling process works. Students are awarded on an annual basis, and funds are reserved for all terms in that academic year. At a semester school, we have fall and spring terms. In quarter schools, there are fall, winter, spring, and summer terms. Students may become ineligible for individual terms or for all terms, so financial aid administrators either report term level ineligibility or annual level ineligibility. These funds are withdrawn and redeposited to the holding account. Over the weekend award processing, those same funds are recycled to waitlisted students who are highest on the priority hierarchy. All eligible students are placed on the school roster whether they have been awarded or not. Users can click Search to see all award statuses, or you can choose to view a specific award status. The roster reflects the 5 different award statuses, which includes awarded, where a student has a preliminary award offer, and once eligibility has been certified and payment requested by the college, a check will be sent. Eligible not awarded means a student is eligible but not yet awarded. In other words, this student is lower on the priority awarding scale and is waitlisted. This student will eventually be awarded, but it may not be until the next academic year. Pending means there is a pending transaction that will process Monday evening. Paid in full is a student was paid for all eligible terms up to their unmet need. And the last status is not awarded, which means the school certified the student as ineligible. After clicking Search, the student records will be displayed. Click on the blue image of the eye next to the student record to open the student's detailed roster. A good rule of thumb is to work the roster every Tuesday to check for newly awarded students. Here's a screenshot of the roster. The Chaffee payment roster has 5 sections. One is the payment roster details, which displays student demographics information imported from the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application. The second section is in the ineligible section, which is used to report annual level ineligibility. The third section is eligible section, used to report term level eligibility or ineligibility. You'll notice several pre-populated fields. Those in white can be overwritten if data needs to be modified. For example, the eligible section pulls education level, EFC, and unmet need as reported by the student on the FAFSA or DREAM Act application. The college cost of attendance comes from the annual cost estimate forms submitted by colleges every October. The fourth section is request payment to select the term or terms for which the student is eligible for payment. And lastly, the reminders and resources section where you will find the payment roster user guide, which outlines nearly every payment scenario, including how to report ineligibility at the term level and at the annual level. To be eligible for payment, students need to be enrolled in a program of at least 1 year in duration, attend half-time, making SAP based on the new SB 150 provisions, and have sufficient unmet need. Beginning in 2020, Assembly Bill 150 created new provisions around SAP. It softened school SAP policy to allow students who are on academic probation to continue to receive Chaffee funds for 2 years before losing their award. In addition, students who are in jeopardy of losing the Chaffee Grant due to SAP must be given the option to appeal. And while this presentation does not discuss SB 150 in detail, schools are expected to comply with the new provisions. Therefore, college staff should review the new law to draft an updated SAP policy specific to the Chaffee Grant. So colleges will end up creating 2 SAP policies, one for Chaffee recipients and the other for all other students. John Burton Advocates for Youth has put together a toolkit and related documents. We highly recommend reviewing these materials for details around SB 150. Now, let's see how to certify eligibility on the roster on the next slide. This is the section of the roster where eligibility is certified for awarded students. Please note that there is no need to certify eligibility for students who are not yet awarded or eligible not awarded. Certifying the roster for students who are still waitlisted creates rework because you will end up having to recertify and request a payment once the student is actually awarded. As mentioned earlier, living arrangements, education level, and EFC are all extracted from the FAFSA or DREAM Act application, and these fields can be edited if needed. Terms attending, these boxes are pre-populated based on your school's term schedule. You can see that this screenshot is from a semester school because 2 terms, fall and spring, are pre-populated. In most cases, you will not need to check or uncheck any of these boxes. The only time you would uncheck a term attending box is to report ineligibility for that term. Continue to fill in the required fields to complete the certification. Cost of attendance can also be modified if the pre-populated figure is incorrect. Your school's cost of attendance comes from the cost estimate form that your school submits every October. Finally, please follow your school's policy on what constitutes other aid. The bottom section of the roster is where schools request payments. Request payments for all open terms for which your student is eligible. Certifying eligibility and requesting payment should be done at the same time because the roster only allows 1 transaction per week. Please remember to save your transaction. If you certify the eligible section before requesting payment, you will have to wait until the following Tuesday to request payment. Once you click Save, ensure that your screen displays the transaction saved successfully pop-up. Please note, unmet need is automatically calculated. It can only be changed by modifying one or more other factors in the calculation, cost of attendance, EFC, or other aid. As you're attempting to pay students, you'll notice that some terms will not allow a payment to be requested. This is for one of 3 possible reasons. The first one is that the term is not applicable to your school. For example, a semester school with fall and spring terms will not be able to request payment for winter term. The second is the roster is not open for that term. The dates in parentheses in the red box are the dates that those terms will open for payment. The third is that you unchecked a term box in the terms attending section of the roster, thereby reporting that your student is not eligible for that term. Now that we've seen how to report eligibility, let's look at how to report and recycle funds for ineligible students. There are more eligible Chaffee applicants than there are funds, which is why we need to recycle funds from ineligible students and put them into the hands of eligible waitlisted students. You can choose one of the 4 annual level ineligible reasons you see on the screenshot. This will make the student ineligible for the remainder of the award year unless the school reinstates the award and brings the student back into the program. Please note, if you are reporting a student as ineligible due to not maintaining SAP, be sure to comply with the relaxed SAP provisions under SB 150. For example, perhaps you have a student who registered but did not actually attend at the start of the fall term. If that student is not in attendance at the start of the year and has not made contact with you, it's assumed that they will not enroll at all. This is an appropriate use of annual level ineligibility. However, if the student attends later during the fall term, simply uncheck the box and click Save to put them back into the pool for award consideration. Typically, students will be re-awarded the following week. Let's look at how to report term level ineligibility on the next slide. Unlike reporting annual level ineligibility, when reporting term level ineligibility, the reason code is not needed. To report the student as not attending, on a leave of absence, less than half time, not meeting SAP, or otherwise ineligible for payment for that term only, simply uncheck the term box in the Terms Attending section and click Save. That's it. Now the $2,500 that had been held in reserve for this student will be recycled to the next waitlisted student. Now let's say this student regains eligibility later in that same spring term. Just recheck the spring terms attending box, recalculate cost of attendance, EFC, and other aid as needed, and save that transaction. This will reinstate that student's award and will put them back into the pool of other eligible students. Web grants will reprioritize them based on the awarding hierarchy, and in most cases, the student is re-awarded the following week. In this next section, we will introduce the Student Application Status screen. Many financial aid administrators only use the payment roster in web grants, but familiarizing yourself with this screen is extremely beneficial. The new updated system modernized our legacy system in order to process awards more efficiently. The processes that you are all familiar with to confirm your student's eligibility and to disperse checks are still the same, but the screens have been updated to make web grants easier to navigate and use. This is a sample of what you will see when looking at a student's application status screen. The student application status screen has a lot of great information, especially with regard to when pay warrants or the checks are issued. So we have broken up the screen into 3 slides. Learning where to find this information will make you an even better financial aid officer. Under the application status section, the green check marks indicate that this student has met all application requirements and is eligible for the Chaffee Grant. We also see the dates that this student's status is paid renewal. This refers to the awarding hierarchy. Remember that paid renewal students who have not reached their 26th birthday by July 1st of the award year have first priority in the awarding process. Date foster youth eligibility received is the date that CDSS verified foster youth status. Years paid means that the 5-year limit for this student, they have 3 out of 5 years paid participation. And now we're going to view the rest of the student application status screen on the next slide. In the green highlighted area, you can see that this student was preliminarily awarded on July 27th. In the blue section, we see that this financial aid official, Drew Adams, certified eligibility for the fall term on August 11th. Schools have 30 days from the time the student is first awarded to certify eligibility for fall term. Finally, in the red highlighted section, we see that the check was issued and mailed by the State Controller's Office 10 days later, on August 21st. This same payment process is repeated each term. Let's take a look at the final section of the student application status screen, the correspondence records. This new addition to the Chaffee portal allows you to see the various correspondence records that have been sent to the student. There's a lot of confusion around the award status called eligible not awarded. We saw this award status on the payment roster, and this is how it appears on the student application status screen. We can clearly see 3 green check marks indicating that the 3 application requirements were met, so this student is fully eligible. However, the reason they are not yet awarded is that they are simply not high enough on the awarding hierarchy to have been awarded at this time. Remember, students whose status is paid renewal are given first priority, but this student's status is new, so they are lower in priority. In addition, we can see by the date of birth that this student is only 21 years old. Since the Chaffee Grant can now be renewed through age 26, and because the eldest students are paid ahead of younger students, this student will remain waitlisted in queue until they rise towards the top of the list. They will eventually be awarded as older applicants are paid out each week throughout the school year. But again, it's not uncommon for a young applicant to be waitlisted for an entire school year but while they are waiting in queue, they are also rising up through the ranks of the awarding hierarchy. The final step in the Chaffee process is to report all Chaffee checks that your campus receives, whether dispersed to the student or returned back to the Commission. Checks that are requested for Chaffee awardees arrive on campus with this stub attached. Checks that are being returned for students who lost their eligibility will be returned to the Commission along with the stub that indicates the reason for the return. Both dispersed and returned checks are reported on the institution reconciliation screen. Please note, for remote learning or distance classes taking place during COVID, it is recommended to mail checks to students via certified mail with tracking and signature required. All checks paid or returned should be reported on the institution reconciliation screen. Many schools are not using this screen, but it is required and will help you at year-end reconciliation. It is also beneficial in the event a student reports they never received their check. Using the screen, you can easily confirm whether and when that check was dispersed or returned to the Commission. Search using any of these options. I find the Payments by CSAC ID or SSN by academic year the easiest way to search. Once the payment record populates, simply input the date school paid student to report disbursements. If returning a check, input both the dollar amount being returned and the date. That's all there is to the roster. Now let's take a look at the student portal, My Grant Info, next. WebGrants for Students is the self-service student portal for managing all state aid. It allows students to report school changes or a leave of absence, to update their contact information, and also alerts students of pending or incomplete requirements. Since foster students typically have significant need, many will qualify for multiple types of aid. It is not uncommon for a foster student to receive both a Chaffee Grant and a Cal Grant. In that case, both awards would be managed here. For example, a student can verify that a Cal Grant GPA was uploaded by their high school. Later, when they receive their Cal Grant award letter, students will be instructed to log in to claim their Cal Grant awards by self-certifying their high school graduation. Students can also put their Cal Grant on hold if they will not be using it by reporting a leave of absence on My Grant Info. And one really important aspect of the student portal is that it displays any pending requirements. It's crucial to award eligibility that students fulfill all requirements. Students will need to either confirm their college of attendance or report a school change. Finally, students should be proactive and check periodically for any pending requirements. Let's look at the Cal Grant Award status, which displays pending. The question is why? The GPA was submitted, and we can see that the student already confirmed that they are attending American River College. So what's missing? Once again, students click Show Details to see what's missing, and it shows that the high school graduation verification is pending. So this student simply needs to click the corresponding radio button to indicate that they did or did not graduate or obtain a GED. My Grant Info is a self-help tool and should be the first stop for students with questions about whether they were awarded, and if not, why, how much they were awarded, how to report a school change, and how to update their contact information. So if your students ask you why they haven't received an award notification, please teach them to be their own advocates by logging into their portals first. The status of all types of state aid that the student applied for, the Cal Grant, Chaffee Grant, and Middle Class Scholarship, will appear on the portal. Right away, we see that this student's application status is incomplete. If you open up the details, we see the reason. The FAFSA or DREAM Act application was not submitted, and foster youth status was not automatically verified by CDSS. So the student is being prompted to complete the foster youth care eligibility form, which we saw on the same website as the online Chaffee application earlier in this presentation. Once the student's FAFSA or DREAM Act application is submitted and foster youth status is verified, they will see that all requirements are now complete, meaning that the student is now fully eligible. But wait, why is the student's award status not awarded? Again, when students click Reason and Show Details, they see that their college reported that they're not enrolled, so the award was withdrawn and recycled to another eligible waitlisted student. This student can regain eligibility if they enroll at least half time. Foster students face many challenges, and they typically have the greatest need of all student cohorts, so we want to do everything we can to help these students. These tips and reminders will help keep Chaffee funds moving and into the hands of students who need them. Please work the roster on a weekly basis and report both eligible and ineligible students. Remember, you have a direct impact on the recycling and reawarding process. Please subscribe to receive our alerts and memos. And once again, this is how the Commission communicates with school segments. You can remind students to create their web grants for students portals to acclaim their awards, check for pending requirements, report a school change, post a leave of absence for Cal Grant only, and update their demographic information. If you have a computer lab at your institution, you can consider hosting a Cash for College workshop to assist students with application completion. Workshops are held between October 1st, when the new FAFSA and DREAM Act application are open, to March 3rd, the Cal Grant deadline. You can earn $300 if you get 50 attendees. Please remind students to complete a Chaffee application. When we ran a recent query, there were 2,700 confirmed foster youth who submitted a FAFSA and DREAM Act application but had not submitted a Chaffee app. Finally, please know your campus and community resources and refer your foster students. Some campuses offer support programs via referral for CalFresh, extended opportunity programs and services, Guardian Scholars, Next Up, and others. These organizations provide comprehensive resources for foster youth. Department of Social Services, California College Pathways, and John Burton Advocates for Youth offer financial aid resources and education support. Please engage with us on social media, where we post important updates and deadlines for students and schools. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, please contact school support by phone or email. Thank you.